You did talk about
112.1. And the director and Lance were just talking about, the director told Lance that his work is going to sell for a lot of money, but only after he's dead. Lance, you just said.
I hear that like once a month from somebody, because it's like an old cliche from the 1950s that your art only sells when you're dead. But it's too optimistic, actually. Ironically, in the 21st century, when you die, not only does your work not sell, it just ends up at swap meets or in people's closets. And sometimes your relatives just show up and throw it in the dumpster and get whatever is of real value. So, no, having my work sell for millions when I'm dead, that's a dream that I would look forward to if it was really true. As far as becoming successful in my lifetime, I don't even think about it. What I told my students today, as a matter of fact, is I said, look, I can only teach you how to paint. I can teach you how to paint as well as anyone who ever lived, but how you make a living doing it, that's not something I can control. I did have some helpful advice, though. If you're a realist artist, meaning you paint things that look like things, and your taste is kind of the same as the masses, then you can do paintings that you like that people will buy. But if you're kind of out there and you do work that's a little bit peculiar, then you'll have beautifully painted stuff that nobody will want or want to try to sell. So, like for example, this painting right here, which we're showing for educational purposes, and it's just a painting, there are two nipples showing. So it's impossible to sell it. You have to cover one nipple to make it
then
taste.
It's art?
Then it's art, yeah.
I know, sometimes when I'm using your bathroom, I see the magazines you have for artists and for people who buy art. And there are a lot of super decorative works with pretty ladies, like relaxing on the couch. Like, oh, I just caught the super pretty lady relaxing in afternoon sunshine.
Exactly, yeah. So, I mean, the idea is that there are realist paintings you could sell, but they're apt to be on the bland side, because a dealer once told me this: they have to look good in front of the children and over the dining room table. And if you look around the room, I've got way too many full frontal nudes and skulls, and I've got a suicide victim in the back of one of my paintings. None of that stuff is going to be palatable necessarily. So, what are our topics today, Rick? Do you
What's
know
our
anything?
first? Our director gets, like, he's been sucked into our world of caring about this shit, and so he's now on the way down here. We develop lists of stuff to talk about. I feel bad because I've sucked him into the vortex of this, of giving, like, you and I, before 9/11, well, you in particular, 9/11 turned you from a liberal who didn't pay much attention to politics into somebody who pays way too much attention. Rather kind of the way that Trump getting elected turned me into somebody who pays way too much attention.
Well, actually, by the way, is our vocals? I wanted to mention something to you, because not only are we both now paying attention to politics, but I actually paid attention to something you said in our last show. and I couldn't get it out of my mind. Every time I've ever said to you that one of the reasons I hate the Democrats is that they're for open borders, you just laugh. You go, ha! That's ridiculous. You hit your knee and then you scoff and say, that's ridiculous. And then we talked a little bit further, and I said to you, well, so how many illegal aliens do you want to pour over the border? And you said 500,000 a year would be fine.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't seem unreasonable, considering that we're a country of 330 million people. I mean, it would seem unreasonable if it were 1794 and we were a country of 3.1 million people.
Okay, so Rick, I want you to understand this. When a person says that they find it acceptable to have 500,000 people pour over the border illegally,
Well, we didn't pin it down to illegal.
I said illegal. Well, I said it over and over again because right now it's 1 million a year. And I said,
Except that not all
'cause
those people get to stay. Now,
okay,
you can
okay,
argue
no,
that, yeah,
no,
they
no,
all
right. Are you
are.
backtracking? Because you said unequivocally, and we can find the video. If you want to backtrack,
No, if you
that's
want to
fine.
hold me to that, that's
Yeah.
for,
But I just want to mention to you that is open borders.
well,
That is the definition of open borders.
not, well, you said 1 million people are trying to get over you.
1 million people get over the border. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's,
And you'd be happy, but you said you would find it acceptable to have 500,000.
yeah, I'd want them to get screened.
Screened?
I mean, the way, the people show up, they ask for asylum, or they decide not to ask for it. I mean, there are a lot of ways that people show up at the border.
Rick, you said
Okay, so,
that if 500,000 illegal
All right, so
aliens came over the border and stayed in the United States, you'd find that acceptable.
I guess I'm going to have to backtrack
All right,
because,
further explain yourself.
well, A, I haven't thought about the logistics of it that much, or at all. And B, I don't want just people walking into our country without any kind of screening.
What if they get screened and they're still, what screening of what? What would they be screened for?
Well, for one thing, a lot of people, I don't know what percentage of people show up wanting to ask for asylum.
Does it really matter, Rick?
Well, yeah, because if they ask for asylum, then there's a hearing and they have to explain themselves.
Okay, but do you really believe that, Rick? Do you buy that? Because you know that's just an excuse, right, Rick?
Yeah, but it might be
There
nice to...
are no countries in the southern hemisphere or Latin America where people are literally forced to leave to seek asylum. That only happens in countries where it's a communist dictatorship and somebody gets on a raft and maybe paddles away from Cuba.
Okay,
So seeking asylum is just an excuse the Democrats came up with to get more voters.
all right,
So what do you mean screen? Screen for
all right,
what?
so the deal is, I guess, that I'd like them to show up before a judge and
Because you believe that they're really running from a government that wants to suppress
no,
them.
it's not usually the government. Usually the government's completely ineffectual. And I mean, what you hear a gazillion times is that they're running from gangs in their country who say, join the gang or die.
Okay, well then why don't they just stay in the very next country? Why do you even need to have them come 3 countries to get to us?
Because America's better than all the countries.
Well then they're economic reasons, not asylum. Right, Rick?
It's like a combination. But yeah,
What do you mean a combination? If you are being chased by gangs and you get to Mexico and the gangs are Guatemalan gangs and they can't get you in Mexico, then you've already achieved asylum. Your reason for coming to the United States is more money.
Yeah.
Well, if you know that, then what exactly are you screening them, these 500,000 illegals that you want to take in? What are you screening them for?
I guess to see if they're douchebags or not. To the
How
best
would
of
you
your-
ever know that?
I don't know, but we have, I mean, it takes, if you go through the process, it takes 2 years to work through the deal. You show up, you ask. At least when things were working normally, it took 2 years from the time that you showed up and said, "Can I come to your country?" and and you meet certain criteria. I don't know what the criteria are, and I mean, it's not like we just let people. Now I know that we fit people up, some people with ankle bracelets saying you got to show back up at court and stuff like that. We have in the past let people in but they're not officially residents or anything, but they have to show up in court and stuff. Now I think there's less of that. But the deal is that...
So you don't want them to be illegal aliens. You want them to be legally allowed in for fraudulent asylum claims?
What happened before asylum was the big deal that people...
They just didn't use that excuse. The Democrat lawyers gave them that excuse so the Democrats could get more voters.
So before asylum was the excuse.
It wasn't a big deal 5 years ago. This is a new thing the Democrats thought of.
Yeah, but so 5 years ago, what was the deal? Somebody shows up and says, "I want to come to your country."
No, they didn't say that. They tried to avoid the border guards, and under Obama, they created a new practice where they would simply be captured for a minute. They'd take their name, and then they just release them into the United States. That's what Obama did.
Except that he did deport like 3 million people.
Right, but he kept letting more in after that. So I don't even know what the point was. But what I'm saying is, the last time we actually enforced the border was 2 or 3 presidents ago. I don't even remember the last president that actually said, "No way, no more." But my point is, this asylum request is new. This is the request for asylum has gone up, has shot up dramatically.
And 4%, 97%, 98% of the time, request for asylum is turned down.
Okay,
once it hits
so
court.
would you accept the Trump plan that they would have to stay in Mexico and request asylum from Mexico?
It seems like the way requesting asylum works now, it doesn't work, right? We can agree on that because...
we don't have enough judges for all the people you want to get here.
But when they get in front of a judge, the judges they get turn them down 98% of the time.
Right, but it wastes billions of Americans' dollars.
So maybe it's not about asylum.
Well, see, it is about, what happens is that the judge says leave, and then they disappear. They melt into American society. So it works well for the Democrats that want these people in here. You're evading the question. You told me that you would accept 500,000 illegals every year. Now, are you saying you don't want them to come in?
I got to backtrack because I said it without thinking about it.
Okay, well that's fine. I mean, you can change your mind. You can say that I misinterpreted or you didn't think that's fine. I'm not trying to pin you down. But what I'm saying is, if you're for closed borders, then you wouldn't accept any. The number would be 0.
I used to think about this before we ever started talking about it. I've thought about this in a very offhand way, very occasionally, for 20 years. Because this stuff, even before Trump and before Obama, it was an issue. And I was thinking about, I naively was thinking about, if I could have things any possible way, it would be a tight border, but liberal criteria to let people in. That is, everybody has to show, nobody slides through without being noticed and registered and screened by the U.S. government. But if that were achievable, you could call it a completely closed border. Well, as long as you mean it's not a border that's closed to the point that nobody can ever can ever come to our country and ask to come in and be admitted. But a border that catches everybody.
That wants to come illegal.
A system of orders and requests and whatever that notices, that it becomes aware of everybody trying to get it.
So you're for legal immigration.
Legal but liberal.
Okay, here, look, this is just so complex, Rick, that I don't even know where to begin. I'm going to throw some facts at you.
Okay.
Most of the Democrat candidates in those debates said that they want to decriminalize sneaking over the border. So it's no longer against the law.
So it's
It
a
would
civil
be
penalty
yeah,
instead of a criminal penalty.
something that would be basically not really punishable anymore, a fine or something. How do you feel about that?
I haven't thought about it in any serious way.
Well, here's a chance.
But without decent tracking technology, keeping track of, or whatever, tracking methods, it doesn't sound so great.
The Democrat candidates are all pretty much 100% opposed to building a wall. Do you agree with that?
For the most part, yeah.
So you don't want a wall either?
We've had this discussion a bunch before, but the deal is we already have a wall along 1/3 of the border. And I'm in favor of, a tight system.
Do you want to remove that wall? Because the Democrats want to remove that wall too.
No.
So you're opposed to the Democrat belief that there should be no wall?
Well, I don't think that's what the Democrats
The
really believe.
Democrat candidates do not want a wall.
Yeah, but has anybody specifically? I find
We
it hard
can
to
look
believe.
up. We can look up each Democrat's stance on the wall during the break.
I bet you few Democratic candidates have been asked specifically, well, do you want to remove the wall that's already, or the barriers that are already in place?
Well, they say they don't want a wall. Rick, listen to me. I need to do something here. Don't play games.
No, it's not
The
games
Democrats
because
are against a wall. Are you against a wall?
I'm against a wall where a wall will do no further good.
Rick, no one on earth wants a wall where a wall will do no further
Right,
good.
but you're
so
saying-
stop playing games
No,
with
but
me.
you're playing games too, because you're saying that the Democrats, you're saying disingenuously, I think, that the Democrats want no wall at all.
No,
They want
I'm completely sincere, Rick.
But has anybody asked the Democrats that? Do you
Yes,
wanna
yes.
remove-
Nancy
and-
Pelosi refused to fund a wall of any kind ever.
No, but
We've asked
But
it.
nobody
Rick,
has specifically
Yes,
asked.
yes.
Nobody has.
Yes, we
Specifically
can go.
asked. Nobody's asked Amy Klobuchar.
Yeah,
do you want to remove-
let's do it. Let's do it. Let's go on the internet.
All right.
Okay, listen to me. Nobody has asked. Nobody has said there is this 6-foot piece of wall in McAllen, Texas. Do you want it removed? You're right, Rick. Nobody did that.
All right.
But they've asked the Democrat candidates and the House of Representatives, do you want a wall on the border? And they have said, we will not fund a wall on the border. No one in the Democrat Party that I'm aware of all the major candidates and people in the Senate and the House of Representatives, has said, I would like to fund a wall on the border. That has not been said. Do you agree with that?
No, but I'm not a candidate for president. And I'm not a representative.
Well,
Here's
why
the
does
deal.
there have to be a but?
Because, and I've said this a bunch of times, because there are two
All right, I
extreme-
was about to get my computer to look up the stands on the wall of every candidate. I guess we've passed that.
Yeah,
so I'm
but
going
the
to sit
deal
back
is,
down.
I mean, the deal is that there are two extreme stances now. Because would you agree with me that national politics is more polarized now than just about at any time in our life?
Rick, ask me this question. I'm going to answer it. Hey, should we have a wall on the border? Yes, we should. 3 words.
All right, so I'll agree with you. We should have a wall where walls would
Yes, yes.
Work.
I don't want a wall on a rainbow.
right?
I don't want a wall
In
in
the
the
middle.
Marianas Trench.
Yeah.
I want a wall. A wall where appropriate. Yes.
Okay, yeah, okay.
An effective wall.
Right.
A wall that will keep people out. That's the kind of wall I want. Not a wall in a black hole somewhere. Not a wall on Saturn.
Yeah.
Just
all
a
right.
wall.
All right. So,
A big wall.
Okay, we're a big wall. Anyway,
Okay.
But the deal is
That's what I want. What do you want?
The deal is there are two extreme positions, one held by each political party, and neither position is great.
You're a Republican. You just said you want a wall.
Well,
You're against your own party.
not really. No.
Your party said that they want no wall. They're refusing to fund a wall.
They want
The
no.
Democrat candidates are opposed to a wall. You are a Republican.
I'm not. I'm not.
Why are you voting against the man that wants a wall? You hate him. You hate him. Orange man bad. He wants a wall. You want a wall.
I don't want everything that he wants with regard to immigration.
You said Trump can't be elected. Can you tell us this would be good?
Well, that's a whole other issue.
Let's switch issues.
All right,
We've
the
done this
deal.
to death.
So, yeah, all right. So, director and I were talking on the way down here, and it may be wishful thinking because you're right. I don't want Trump to be reelected. That my theory is, and I could be proved very wrong, but that Trump has his base. The people who support Trump, who like Trump, they like the way he expresses himself. They like the way he's come in and he doesn't follow any of the norms of politics. And then there are the people who tolerate Trump. They maybe don't like his demeanor because actually he gets pretty bad. His scores for demeanor, his approval ratings for just on demeanor are much lower than his scores for overall as president. So the people who love Trump, they're the people who tolerate Trump because they like what he's doing. But I think there's another big group of people who voted for Trump who were like wanting to give him a chance, thinking that, and I thought he would govern more as a centrist because he's been a liberal before. He's got a long history of being liberal on a lot of issues. You know, I mean, he's a guy who has a public record of saying stuff. He's kind of like us. Like if we ever ran for any kind of big office, we'd have a gazillion things that we could be hanged with because of what we said here. And it's similar for Trump in that he went on Howard Stern, I don't know how many times, probably once a month for 10 years. And so you can find his stated opinion about things. And a lot of his opinions were, maybe were conservative about some stuff, but very liberal about other stuff. And so it was not unreasonable to think that he would govern more as a centrist than he has. And I think a lot of people who voted for him with that expectation, he's lost their votes because they've seen what he's governed as. And if you look at his approval over the past, it's been 30 months, it's been rock solid, steady. It hasn't moved more than plus or minus 2, 3, 4 percentage points. It's been the most steady approval of any president ever, which makes me think that voters will be hard to move, and that given his current level of approval, that will make it tough but not impossible for him to be reelected. But I could be wrong.
I can't predict how he's going to do because the problem, if the electorate was ordinary Americans and the Democrats weren't bringing in millions of illegals that I believe they will cheat with, then I think he'd win. I also think the Democrats are cheating by getting Google and Facebook and all the platforms to make they're trying to control the electorate's opinions, and there have been congressional hearings about this month because there have been internal documents that were leaked or stolen at Google, for example. So there are two factors. I believe the Democrats are cheating by using these social media. But the third factor is that I believe the Democrats have complete control over the media, except for talk radio and some of the things on YouTube, and Fox News. So ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, LA Times, all the other newspapers, the universities, those are all controlled by the Democrats. And actually, a lot of people are beginning to think that the news media actually controls the Democrats. It's the reverse. That those people that shape opinion, they're the ones that are in charge, and they use the Democrat Party to get what they want. But either way, if the media was 50-50, if the social platforms, the browsers were all completely neutral, the way the phone company is, and if millions of illegals weren't being melded into our society and given driver's licenses and ID and sanctuary cities status, if that wasn't happening, then Trump would breeze to election in a landslide. But I don't think you can ever count out these unfair tactics that the Democrats are using.
All right. So
One other thing,
well,
the one last thing, the states that in the Rust Belt that Trump just barely won, the Democrats are not taking those states for granted anymore. They're in Pennsylvania, they're in Michigan, they're in Ohio. All those, I don't remember the exact states that he won that he flipped, but the Democrats are pouring efforts into those states, and they only have to win by a little bit to change things. And they'd gotten a little complacent, and they won't be this time.
all right. So there's a lot to disagree with you, for me to disagree with here. But let's start with where we agree, which is the 2020 election will be the craziest election in history because of attempts to manipulate voters. And you think the manipulation is largely happening to drive voters to vote Democratic. And I would cite all this, and we don't need to argue about, we can move on to argue about other stuff, but I would cite all this stuff in the Mueller report and about the Russian efforts to get their own propaganda out in favor of the 2016 Republican candidate.
Well, that's not what happened. There was the Russians supported both sides.
Well, they
The
supported
Russians, what the Russians were attempting to do was to create discord.
Mhm.
So I mean, they would have a rally. They would promote a rally that was going to be racially charged. They would switch back and forth. All they were trying to do was to cause trouble, which is what they've always done.
Well, I would disagree.
And
I would agree with you.
By the way, if that's the case, why didn't Obama do an effective job of stopping them?
Well, all right. I mean, the standard.
I mean, Obama said there was nothing.
The answer that I would I've given is
You said he went to the Republicans and they said, no, we love it.
no. That's not exactly it. Obama held a meeting with the Gang of Eight, which I guess is the 8 most powerful senators in the Senate. Is that what the Gang of Eight is, right?
The Gang of Eight was a group that was tasked to solve immigration.
All right. Well, anyway, he went to some group of powerful senators. And Mitch McConnell is the one who said, if you announce this, that the Russians are doing this, then I will politicize it. I will accuse you of... That was step one. Well, step one, Obama goes to the Senate. Gets, I don't know, whatever. The intelligence services go to Obama. Obama goes to the senators. The Senate, Mitch McConnell says, yeah, if you make a speech, if you tell the American people about this, I'm just going to accuse you of trying to flip the election to Hillary. And then Obama, in step 4 or whatever, close to the last step, is like, all right, I don't want to be accused of politicizing the thing, and Hillary's going to win anyway, he thinks. And so he doesn't go to the American people. That's my understanding of it. And as far as the Russians trying to sow discord, yeah, that was one thing they were trying to do, but they were also trying to nudge people towards Trump.
Well, I don't think that people voted for Trump because the Russians convinced them. The Russians only spent at most a couple $100,000 or something.
Yeah, but that money can go far if you know where. Just to use a personal example,
Well,
I bought more than 3 million fake followers on Twitter for less than $1,000. And if I'd known what I was doing, I could have probably gotten an even better deal. But no, I just would go online and go and look for good deals, and I would buy them, frickin' 10,000 here and 5,000 there. And, so maybe they didn't spend a lot of, but they've got this whole building in St. Petersburg that's full of, that has to be like the happiest place in Russia, where they just come up
every week. But
yeah, but I mean,
they come up with. Go ahead, finish your.
Well, they come up with fun ways to sow discord. They make up organizations, and then they start tweeting as these supposedly American organizations, and they say outrageous shit, and people go nuts.
But when I said to you that Hillary had paid Russian intelligence officers that we know their names for the dossier, which they gave to, which got to the FBI and the CIA, and that Brennan actually leaked this information to the newspapers, BuzzFeed, within a few weeks of the election. You never bring that up as Russian interference because the Democrats did it, and you like the Democrats.
I don't know the whole deal with that. I do know that, at least according to the really half-assed way I learned about it from Twitter, that Christopher Steele, the British former spy who was paid by, well, first the Republicans and then...
He was never paid by the Republicans.
All right. He came in later. I'm wrong about that. That it was paid
hired by Hillary.
All right, so he was hired by Hillary to come up with dirt on Trump, and then that turned into the dossier. But he was hauled in front of some investigator general deal.
Yes, this week.
Right.
This month.
And according to Twitter, which offers the most insightful, I don't know, because it's fucking Twitter. They said that the group, the IG group, came away like not thinking it was bullshit, thinking that they were impressed by him, according to Twitter. You probably heard a different version.
No, I can tell you this much: we don't know what he said. It hasn't been released.
Well, who leaked that they thought that they want to talk to him more? And
I would say that you don't know what he said. No, the guy that there is an IG report, investigator general, and he's been working on a report, and so much has come out about this dossier and Christopher Steele that coincidentally, after Trump visits England, Steele becomes available for an interview by our government. So we don't know what's going to be in that report that Steele says. What we do know is that Steele has admitted in court in Britain that he does not know if anything in the dossier is true.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, okay, fine.
So
we should move
anyway,
on to stuff.
so I don't know where we started, but it
Yeah,
was.
we've wandered around.
Yeah, we wandered on that one.
What's our
So
next
what
thing?
else?
Can we do a quick science corner?
Sure.
All
People
right.
like when I talk about sciencey stuff, and when we were driving down here, you mentioned that a couple new black holes have been discovered.
Do you wait before we do this? Before I forget. Sorry, we're old. We forget things.
Yeah.
Can you please tell the guy that keeps putting comments that he wants to know about your universal theory?
I'll get to you, guy who wants to know, and I'm sorry. I'm feckless. Feckless is a really good word. It means kind of lackadaisical and irresponsible. Also, I've just had a lot of shit going on, though everybody has a lot of shit going on, so that shouldn't be an excuse. But tomorrow, for instance, I'm supposed to give myself an enema so I can go to the butt surgeon, and he can look up a clean butthole because my butthole is badly broken and needs to be fixed.
Can we see it?
Nobody wants to see my butthole. I've been told, however, that the scar tissue there looks like a pair of kissing lips. So, nobody wants to see that. Anyway, black holes. Black holes are what happens according to the theory of general relativity and a bunch of other theories that are less accepted and less popular. When you get so much matter together in a small volume of space that the gravitational attraction among all that matter, the thing that holds us to Earth, is the mass of the Earth pulls against us to hold us to the Earth, because that's a big mass pulling on our mass. And the Earth also pulls on itself. That's why the Earth is round, because the Earth is pulling on all of itself, and if there were a mountain that were 30 miles high, the force of gravity would, over time, pull the mountain much flatter. We don't have any mountains above the ocean surface, at least. That are, the highest is 29,000 feet, Everest. It's about as high as you can get because gravity flattens everything. Everything wants to be as close to the center of the mass of the Earth as possible. And the heaviest stuff moves to the center. The Earth's core is supposed to be metal. I guess mostly molten metal like iron and nickel. And then the lighter stuff has kind of been forced away from the center because the heavier stuff feels being heavy, being more dense, gets pulled harder. Anyway, black hole is when you have so much matter that there are things that keep everything from moving right to the center of a thing. There's the force between atoms, among atoms, electromagnetic repulsion. There's the weak force, there's the Pauli exclusion principle, there's the strong force. All these forces tend to have a repulsive component, a component that makes things get close but not so close because they start pushing against each other. Like if you've ever, you have to be 100 years old to remember those magnetic Scotty Dog toys, because toys used to suck ass in the Depression. And there was a pair of early plastic Bakelite Scotty Dogs. One was white, one was black. Each had a magnet glued to its base. And kids would get a pair of these, and if you turn the magnets one way, the Scotty Dogs would want to stick together. Turn them the other way, and they'd push again. You could push, one Scotty Dog would push the other one away without them ever touching. So there's a repulsive component to every force besides gravity. But if you get enough matter close enough together, according to accepted physics, gravity will just squash everything out of existence. Not out of existence, but to a single point, except for quantum effects, which make things a little fuzzy. But the black hole is where everything is just folded up into as small a region, a volume, as can possibly be, such that the gravitational force at the surface of this thing that's the size of a marble, but weighs as much as the Earth, is so ferocious that even light can't get away from it. It starts going, and it loses, and it basically loses all its energy trying to climb out of the gravitational well. Now, and a crazy freaking thing that's been discovered in the last, 12 years, is that it looks like every galaxy, I don't know if there are exceptions to this, but every galaxy I know of has a gigantic black hole at its center, at the very center, that has a mass between like 1 million suns and maybe 100 billion suns. That enough matter, since the galaxy was formed, has been sucked into the central black hole that it's the equivalent mass of 100 billion suns sometimes. And every galaxy seems to have this thing. And I don't know what black holes that have been recently discovered that have been we haven't discovered a really nearby, unequivocally black hole that I know of. We have indirect evidence. We know that there are supermassive black holes at the centers of galaxies because we can't see some big ass thing at the centers of galaxies, but we can see what the mass is doing to stars that are whipping around this, close but not so close they get sucked in. This huge mass at the center of every galaxy. Now, I tend not to believe in completely black holes. Another guy who ended up not believing in completely black holes was Stephen Hawking, who discovered something called Hawking radiation. Until he discovered this, or did the math that made a good case for this, people thought no matter could ever get away from inside a black hole's event horizon, from inside the suck wall. You want a wall? Fucking put a black hole at the border.
I'm for it.
Okay. That nothing can get out of that fucking well, that gravitational well. But he did some math and found out that the black hole puts enough stress on space. Now, space is mostly a vacuum in between solar systems, and even more so between galaxies. But between stars, far away from stars, it's almost empty, except that it contains stresses and strains due to the quantum nature of space. That it may be empty of matter, but it's not empty of forces. And when you have a frickin' black hole just tearing the fuck out of the structure of space, or just putting a lot of strain on it, that strain can be turned into energy such that there's enough energy to form a particle and an antiparticle. They just pop out of space. And one of them, if this happens close to, but not beyond the border, one of those particles can escape, and the other one will get sucked into the black hole. And all of a sudden, which is the equivalent of a particle just suddenly popping into existence and running away from the black hole, and with that mass being subtracted from the black hole. So black holes actually can leak, according to Hawking radiation. I believe it's even more serious than that, because I believe in an information-based universe, with gravitation being a way to even out the distribution of information in the universe. The more information you have, with information being embodied by mass, by matter, the more matter you have in a limited amount of space, effectively that changes the scale of space. It bends space, which generates gravitational forces. I think when you have a big-ass blackish hole, that blackish hole has its own acceleration vector, which is away from the rest of the universe. But I think you need the rest of the universe to generate the gravitational force that's making the black hole, in a way similar to
Machs.
principle. That you can't have inertial motion in a universe that only contains one frickin' thing. And then one of Newton's principles is a thing in motion will stay in motion as long as you don't mess with it. And similarly, if you put a bucket on a string and spin the bucket, it'll keep spinning as long as friction or whatever else doesn't stop it from spinning. But neither of those things can happen, motion in a straight line, rotational motion, unless you have a background of the rest of the universe for things to be moving against. You can't tell if the bucket is rotating if there's no place to stand outside of the bucket to look at the bucket. So you need the rest of the universe for inertia to work. Though nobody's come up with a convincing mathematical model of that principle. But I believe that principle also applies to gravitation. So when you have a bunch of matter, as much matter as in a million suns, trying to get the fuck away from the rest of the universe, I believe that getting away from the rest of the universe in effect attenuates, reduces the amount of self-gravitational force that matter feels, so that a black hole never becomes entirely black, because it's not getting any support. The more it blacks out, it becomes distant in a gravitational way from the rest of the universe, the more that force is reduced, so it can get close to being black, but never all the way black. That's
We take a break.
Well, real quick, I want to offer you a challenge, Rick.
Okay.
If you can just repeat on the microphone.
All right. The director's offering me a challenge,
It's called the hockey challenge.
Okay.
And do you accept? It's one of these challenges where you have to say yes before you even know what it is.
All right, fine. Yes, though I'm probably going to fail at it. Go ahead.
The hockey challenge is, you know how Stephen Hawking got his disorder, right? And I'm thinking, had he never gotten his disorder where he was strapped to a chair, would he have had such profound thoughts? So what I'm saying to you is, would you be willing to strap yourself to a chair for a month? We'll strap you down, you can't move, and you can just maybe think about physics.
Yes, if you let me loose enough of the day that I could,
You can't move. It's 24/7 for maybe a month. Or
No,
maybe a
I
couple
wouldn't
of
do that.
weeks.
I would do
Maybe a week.
I would do 18 hours a day for a month. The deal is that Hawking seemed to be, he was always brilliant. But he also seemed to kind of be cocky and chill, at least if you've seen the Eddie Redmayne movies. And then he starts getting this disease that's going to paralyze him, and he realizes he has to he becomes unable to write on chalkboards, according to the movie, right? You saw it.
Yeah, and actually he came up with his best theory before he got the illness.
But he realized he would have to develop a shorthand that would allow him to store complicated equations in his head, because he couldn't write them down anymore. And this discipline, I think, was helpful, because he became a very powerful thinker in areas that require these fucking huge equations. And this is something I attempted to do in 1986 in my own stupid way, where I decided to go back to high school one last time in my mid-20s, where I would be stuck in one of those chairs that's like uncomfortably like part chair and part desk, and I'd be stuck there 7 hours a day during class, 6-7 hours, and I'd already been to high school several times. It's like there wasn't there wouldn't be anything new for me to learn, so I'd be stuck in this chair to think about physics, which did not work that great. It worked a little bit. And what else worked is modeling for art classes, because you can't move. I got some of the highest scores I ever got on IQ tests, which were really high because I needed something to think about while I was stuck naked in an uncomfortable pose for 3 hours. So I do the 18-hour-a-day version of that challenge.
Let's see what the audience thinks. maybe we tell them,
Can they hear your question?
say we can.
Director, can your
No.
the director just said he wanted the audience to react to this challenge.
Well, they're going to say, yeah, they want to see a guy tortured by being strapped in a chair 18 hours a day.
Well, may I interject?
Okay.
I would just like to say that even though I've known Rick for 30 years, I'm just now realizing how eccentric Rick is. I mean, at a certain point, when I really think about what he's saying, I think a person would be crazy to do those things. But then I think, well, he's not crazy, but he's extremely eccentric. And even though you tell me that you've been to high school 3 times, I sit next to you, you can form words, you bring me little goodies from your wife's kitchen, we can go to dinner together, we can talk. But I'm just saying, you're a very, very peculiar person, Rick. Very eccentric, but I can't say you're crazy.
Yeah, well, the deal is that if you
Because you know. That's the thing. The reason you're not crazy is that you actually know that these things are eccentric, that you do.
Yeah, but there's there's 2 varieties of eccentric. There's the guy who, like Mystery, the pickup artist, who wears a top hat to bars because it makes him look different and fun. There's the people who are eccentric on purpose. And I like to think, I didn't set out to be eccentric. I set out to get a girlfriend.
But
not the last time I went to high school.
Look at the way you did
I know,
it.
but like I came up with all these terrible plans.
That's what I'm saying. It's
Yeah.
like it is the worst conceivable. I mean, couldn't you have just gotten a tan, worked out?
Well, I did that too. Yeah, I did.
I mean, started with ugly girls, because you can start with ugly girls, which are usually pretty easy to get, and then work your way up to the better ones when you've gained experience.
Oh.
Theory for short people, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Oh wait, but like
I asked him a
But
question.
there's the deal about the scorpion who takes a ride across, begs for a ride across the river on the back of some other animal.
Frog.
Frog, okay. And the frog's like, yeah, but you sting the shit and kill everything that you get near. The scorpion's like, why would I do that? I need a ride. If we don't get across this river, I'm going to die. So why would I sting you? And then the frog's like, all right, good point. All right, gives the scorpion a ride. Halfway across the river, the scorpion stings the frog, who starts dying. And he goes, well, the frog's like, well, now we're both going to die. And the scorpion's like, well, it's just my nature. So like, similarly, I'm both the frog and the scorpion. My brain comes up with a plan. And the frog part of me is like, when you come up with a plan, it usually is stupid and doesn't work. And the scorpion part of me is like, yeah, but I've got this really high IQ, and I don't want things to go badly, and you should trust me, I'm super smart. And the frog part of me is like, all right, we'll give it a shot. And when things fuck up, and the scorpion part of me is like, oh, sorry.
All right. Well, clearly that is the case.
So unlike, I'm not a guy who, I have dyed my hair purple, but it was really because of cheapness, because my kid only used up half a bottle of the purple, and it's like, it ended up in the trash, and I'm like, that's just a fucking waste.
Yeah. I wanted to be responsible, and the director asked a question. My advice for, what is he, Angry Bagel Man or something? All right. Now, most of you have no idea who this person is. The director made me watch this, and it's an interview with a man. I could only watch 2 minutes of it, that is very angry at women. And the thing about him is, he appears to be very short and does not appear to be terribly bright.
This is a guy who he went viral because somebody caught video of him just going apeshit, being pissed off in the Bagel Boss bagel shop, with his main issue, I guess, being pissed off at women and just having a tantrum and eventually being tackled.
The girl was, the cook was laughing at him because he was so short. I think she perceived it that way. He got pissed off at her.
Yeah, all right. And then this was a follow-up interview with this guy because he was so compelling.
Yeah, I couldn't get through it, but basically the man. Okay, so here's what he says about women. He's very angry at women because he says they're all gold diggers. Okay, I don't know if we could get him on the show, but I will just tell, because by the time this airs, people have forgotten about it. But some advice. One, the women are not rejecting you because they're gold diggers. They're rejecting you because you're short, you're really, really short, and you're not terribly charming. Now, here is my advice. They did I saw a show, and I know this is true. I don't need statistics of 1 million people to know this. They took a guy who was a nice looking guy. He just happened to be about 5'3", well below average height. But he was a nice looking guy, and they told a group of about 10 women that he was a doctor, that he owned a mansion at a ski resort, and that he was a great philanthropist and humanitarian. None of the women would go out with him. And then they took another guy that was about 6'2". None of those things. It's just like they said he works at a car shop or something. And most of the women would go out with this guy. Nice looking guy. So, I don't need this show to prove this to me, but I'm just saying this to the audience. Women don't like super short guys.
However...
Wait! Okay. Don't interrupt me. Even though it's not an argument, you can't interrupt me because I'm getting my point.
Okay.
Always does that. All right, so here's the deal. I'm getting to my advice. One, if you're a really, really short guy, do not attempt to get a date with Caucasian or black women. Go to the Philippines, go to Thailand, you will be in heaven. They don't care. You'll be able to get another 5'1" person. You'll be as happy as clams. That's the answer. I swear to God, it works every time. Don't be in a society where the average height of everybody is 6 to 8 inches taller than you. Go to a society where everybody's shorter. You'll be fine, Mr. Angry Man.
Yeah, but he needs like 2 years of therapy to turn him not into an asshole.
Okay. I don't think he's an asshole. I just think, okay, I listened to him. He's legitimately angry because he's been rejected his whole life. I don't blame the guy. But the second thing about this poor guy is that he does not appear to be terribly bright or charming. So the other thing is this. And then he says this. He says, women like to be treated like dirt. And as soon as you're nice to them, they're bored with you. No, that's not what's happening. What's happening is you're not really that nice. What's happening is this. You think you're nice because superficially you're a bit of a gentleman. You don't just love them and leave them. An ugly guy is more likely, a repulsive guy is more likely to want to hang on to what he's got or make it a special occasion